Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the update, your home for your local and nationwide news. We've got a full slate of Iowa City, Iowa, and nationwide news, along with updates from the White House and Capitol Hill.
Along with the latest from polls, keeping your facts straight and a look ahead for the rest of the week.
And thank you for joining us, folks, and welcome to the update, your home for news and politics.
From the local level to nationwide, we're keeping you up to date. I'm Jordan Tovar.
And I'm Johnny Valtman. And Jordan, I think we got the best gift, and it didn't have anything to do with politics. It's finally warm outside. I did not have to wear a winter coat today. I really enjoyed it. It was a wonderful day.
It was truly a beautiful day out there, Johnny. You know, one of my favorite expressions is saying, this is the kind of weather that gives you hope.
And it does, Jordan. And once we get into things, we'll see if there's hope. Who knows? So starting it off, Jordan, starting at the local level, what's going on in Iowa City?
Well, yeah, Johnny, you know, like I said, this is the kind of weather that gives you hope. And there's two candidates who have a lot of hope for themselves coming into next week. And we've been talking a lot about it these past few weeks. And now we are almost to a crucial day for Iowa City. In less than a week, Oliver Weilein and Ross Nusser will face off for the vacant District C spot on the Iowa City City Council. The election will take place on March 4th, with the winner taking the seat. And this is happening because, if you recall last year, Andrew Dunn announced that he would vacate his spot in District C effective at the end of 2024. Earlier this month, a primary was held between three candidates, with Nusser and Weilein advancing from the group. Sharon DeGraw was also on the primary ballot but had dropped out prior to the primary election, though she did still gather a few votes. Something to note about these results, however, though, is that Weilein outgained his fellow candidates by more than double the second closest candidate in Ross Nusser. Whether that was a preview of things to come will be found out next Tuesday, March 4th, on Election Day.
And the update and DITV will have full coverage of that.
Yes, of course. One of the more influential figures in American politics stopped by Iowa City on Saturday as part of a nationwide speaking tour. And before we meet him for the first time tonight, we'll check in with Jace Bertrand, who was at this special event.
Hundreds of supporters, both local and statewide, packed the Angler Theater to see Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders speak. Sanders was a top candidate for the Democratic Party during the 2016 and 2020 presidential elections and has continued to stay in the public eye since. His current goal is to spread warnings of the rise of oligarchy in America. An oligarchy is a form of government where the power is held by a small group of rich elites. Sanders highlighted several key figures as leading the charge toward oligarchy behind Donald Trump.
Standing right behind Trump as he was being sworn in were the three wealthiest people in America: Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg.
Sanders also highlighted concerns of rising prescription costs, lowering salaries, and a mass wave of layoffs as part of Elon Musk's government efficiency initiative.
Today, 60% of our people in the richest country in the history of the world are living paycheck to paycheck.
Several other speakers took to the stage before Sanders to share personal experiences of financial struggles without government aid.
I just have to keep paying this debt until it swallows me whole. And I know many students in this room and former students are asking themselves the same thing. Well into your careers, many of you still have that bill looming.
There's hope that we can stand up, we can exercise our rights. We don't have to be scared. Okay? We're in this together.
After the event, audience members had several key takeaways.
People in America, that lower quartile is going to be screwed over. The middle class is going to feel it soon. And they're going to have enough of this guy. We just got to be there ready to fight back and remind them. What Bernie's doing is going across the country and asking about our congresswoman here, is Miller Meeks. Where's she at?
We have an ability to create our own movement. 99% is bigger than 1%.
And you know, Johnny, a lot of the dates on Sanders' speaking tour was focused on going to a lot of swing districts to get more senators in Congress to vote against Trump's agenda.
Yes, Jordan, and while that is on the nationwide stance and something we will be talking about later, here in the state there is another agenda as Kim Reynolds and the Republican-controlled Iowa House and Senate continue as they are in full swing. And as we are in week 6, let's take it back to week 5 last week. That was the cutoff for senators and representatives to request bills and joint resolution drafts to the legislature. Within the two chambers, the Iowa legislature has introduced 190 new bills, with 143 bills eligible for floor debate. Iowa House lawmakers advanced a bill on Monday. This just came in before we went on, which would revoke civil rights protections for transgender people from the Iowa Civil Rights Act. narrowly passing out a subcommittee 2-1. The House slated an hour-and-a-half public hearing on Thursday at 9:30 a.m. While this was going on today, protesters gathered in the state capitol in opposition of this bill. These protesters had to be moved to the rotunda of the Capitol as some House members struggled to hear those speaking on the floor, and this actually led to the arrest of 4 people. A couple of bills were introduced in line with Governor Kim Reynolds' priorities she set in her 2025 condition of the state. The governor's energy bill was proposed and would invest in Iowa's energy sector to balance economic and environmental interests. Each year, the legislature looks to make additional funding available to school districts. The bill to raise funding from 2% to 2.25% passed with a vote of 58 to 35. Other bills could affect education here in Iowa. A House bill advanced to ban DEI offices in Iowa state agencies, cities, counties, and schools. The legislation follows efforts to remove required courses at Iowa public universities, including here at the University of Iowa. House File 365 proposes that if anyone illegally distributes fentanyl to someone who then dies from its use, then he'll be charged as first-degree murder. The bill passed out of subcommittee on Thursday afternoon. And so a lot of bills, a very busy time. Usually this first month, this is where we see a lot of these bills get introduced, and then it seems like a dogfight all the way up until they break in June. So the Iowa legislature very much active and a lot going on here in the state level.
Certainly things heating up, Johnny. And you know, I talked about him earlier, and now we're actually going to send it over to him. So we'll send it over to Jace, who has our national update for this week.
Thanks, guys. And starting in California, all eyes are on Yosemite National Park as a major protest is taking place. A massive American flag is currently hanging upside down from El Capitan's Horsetail Fall, one of the most recognizable and viewable features of the park. Traditionally, an upside-down American flag represents a distress call for military bases or naval vessels. The flag is being flown in protest of massive federal firings across the country, including park rangers and forestry workers. Included in those firings is Iowa Park Ranger Brian Gibbs, who spoke at the Bernie Sanders event in Iowa City on Saturday.
I'm tired of wiping away my wife's tears and reassuring her that things will be okay for us and our growing little family that she's now carrying. This is the second time in under 5 years a dream job I have worked has been eliminated, and now I may need to uproot my family again.
With Yosemite receiving nearly 4 million visitors last year, the protest is sure to garner attention for the issue. And moving to Europe, Pope Francis's declining health is provoking discussions of a future successor. The 88-year-old Pope remains in critical condition. However, the Vatican has reported that his health has improved from the respiratory crisis he suffered on Saturday. The Catholic Church has officially begun prayers for the Pope's health while he has resumed work with the ministry. While his condition improves, murmurs of a future successor have begun. Nominees from America, Japan, Nigeria, and the Philippines have all emerged as frontrunners. Pope Francis's legacy of promoting inclusivity and acceptance in the church is a hot topic of discussion as future candidates walk across philosophically traditional and progressive lines. And while I'm not personally Catholic, I went to a Catholic high school, so I can personally say that the Pope's health is in my thoughts, and I like to think that he's in all of our thoughts right now. And I'm going to send it back to Johnny with some updates from Pennsylvania Avenue.
Thanks, Jason. Yes, thoughts for the Pope are here at the update. And Jordan, before we get into the White House, I'm just curious, have you ever been to the White House?
I actually haven't, but you know, maybe I'll be going soon. I don't know.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. I've been not in the White House, but I was like about 10 feet away from going into the White House. Would have been tackled by Secret Service, and I probably wouldn't be here right now. So that's why we leave it up to politicians and people to run this country. And speaking of which, we're going to be checking in on them in the Trump administration, what they're up to as of late.
President Trump is remaining busy talking to world leaders, including Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, ahead of a G7 conference call, and he welcomed French President Emmanuel Macron today to the White House. There, the two discussed the Russia-Ukraine war, the two countries' alliances, and once again, tariffs.
Anybody that would agree to allow this to happen to our country should be ashamed of themselves. No, the tariffs are going forward on time, on schedule.
And today marks the 3-year anniversary of the Russia-Ukraine war. President Trump recently called Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator and blamed Ukraine for starting the war. Jason will have more on those claims and fact check, but the U.S. also joined Russia as the only UN countries to reject a proclamation to have Russia pull their troops out of Ukraine. Ukrainian President Zelensky is focusing on enabling Ukraine to be at the negotiation table and working with other world leaders to end the war and his relationship with the United States.
That it will not have influence on other steps of the United States, and they will not cancel or stop or freeze any support, especially military support, to Ukraine.
Federal employees are wondering what comes next as Elon Musk's Doge agency requested federal employees to explain what they accomplished in the last week. If the employee does not respond, it will be seen as a resignation from their position. Agencies like the FBI have advised their employees not to respond to the email as the country waits to see what Musk will do. The actions by Doge are causing concerns on both sides of the aisle.
After 18 years of good performance, now it's shoddy performance, and you're going to have that black mark on your record. And so there is a way that you do this with dignity and respect for your federal employees.
Musk is facing a huge fight back as courts continue to block some of his orders, and federal employees are hitting him back with lawsuits.
So the White House staying very busy, and you know who else is staying busy, Jordan?
Congress.
Exactly. What do you got for us, Jordan?
Well, yeah, Johnny, it's a new week, and the clock is ticking even closer to a potential government shutdown. The current government spending bill expires on March 14th, and if a new deal isn't reached, then not only will the government shut down, so will other workers' jobs around the nation. While most have voiced concern over the matter, noted Trump ally and South African international Elon Musk said on the app formerly known as Twitter Sunday, quote, "Sounds great." If the government does shut down, what does this mean, Jordan? Well, I'm glad you asked, Jordan. Here's an explanation for you. Non-essential government workers are ordered to stay home until the new bill is approved. However, essential staff like security workers still have to work, albeit without pay. Things like national parks would cease operations as well until that new deal is reached. Fortunately, though, Social Security and Medicare will still happen no matter the result. Appointed as director of the FBI last week, Kash Patel has also been appointed as the chief of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. This organization deals with enforcing the laws around firearms, explosives, and arson, among other things. Democrats have raised concern about his appointment, however, with Patel making comments in the past saying that FBI and Department of Justice workers were, quote, government gangsters during the Biden administration. Patel is also known for spreading proven false conspiracies on his podcast about former President Joe Biden. Serving as deputy director for the FBI under Patel will be conservative podcaster and former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino, who was just hired this week. Unlike Patel, however, Bongino will not have to undergo Senate confirmation to fill this position. And I was talking about Patel spreading false narratives, and I know just the guy who loves to bust those false narratives.
Yes, Jordan, I think JC's got his hands full this week, so hopefully he can get through it all. We're going to send it over to Jace with a little bit of fact check.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, and I personally got some big hands, but my hands are definitely full because today I'm going down a laundry list of egregious lies coming from the White House regarding the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Last week, President Trump began talks of ending the war in Ukraine by ceding hundreds of miles of contested territory to Russia, claiming that Ukraine started the war in the first place. For anyone born before February 2022, this is an out-and-out lie. We all watched as Russian forces lined the border with Ukraine. We all watched as Putin declared a, quote, strategic military operation in Ukraine. We all watched as Ukrainians bravely fought against a far superior military. To claim otherwise with little to no evidence is possibly the most blatant attempt to change the facts from a man who's made it his second favorite pastime behind playing golf on the taxpayer's dime. Trump is claiming that Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is preventing elections from taking place in the country. Again, this is a lie. Zelensky was elected to a 5-year term in 2019, and doing this, an election was planned for 2024, but the country's laws prevent an election from taking place during martial law. With hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of Ukrainians either fleeing the country or serving on the front lines, any attempt at an election will fail to reflect the will of the people. Here's a very simple fact I can check myself. The world is watching. If we are to abandon Ukraine, a strong message will be sent. What's to say we'll stick to our promises to protect Taiwan from China, South Korea from North Korea, Israel from Iran, NATO from Russia? If we are so willing to abandon a war we're not even fighting, how are our allies expected to trust us to fight for them when the time comes? How can we expect them to fight for us? If America wants to stop being the global superpower, then this is the quickest way to do it. Personally, I'm feeling tired of seeing all this, so I'm going to send it over to Jordan and Johnny to wrap us up so I can go have some sleepy time.
Well, I think after that, it is some well-deserved sleepy time. Certainly a strong statement from Jace there.
Very strong statement, Jordan. And, you know, we talked about a lot of stuff, and I will say we did a really good job already covering about what's ahead, but I'm still going to just give a little bit of further insight of what we could see in the coming week outside of what we've already talked about. Capitol Hill, the battle to pass a national budget, like Jordan said, is continuing on as the March 14th deadline begins to rear its head over Capitol Hill. As we've talked about in prior weeks, both sides of the aisle are looking at the other one playing fair. However, partisan stances could clock out the process into passing a national budget as Democrats try to hold the current administration accountable for their executive actions, while Republicans continue to push Trump's agenda. Yet some of the moves by the Trump administration could dissuade certain Republicans, impacting that majority they have on both the House and Senate. Taking a step all the way back here in Iowa, it's a long way from D.C. to Iowa, it will be interesting to see where the Iowa legislature goes from here. With the vast majorities in the House and Senate, the right-leaning state House is already falling in line with other Republican-led states in targeting transgender rights, DEI initiatives, and more. If we took notes from what we've seen in D.C., there is a real chance that the Iowa district courts and Supreme Court will have a lot to weigh into the future of the state, checking both the governor's executive power and the legislative power legislators hold. And as I said, we already covered a lot of what I was going to put in. We talked about the budget, Iowa legislature, but then again, the wars in Ukraine, Israel and Hamas, so much going on. But it's a good thing we're still here, Jordan.
For sure, Johnny. And I mean, those things, a lot of them just go hand in hand.
They do, and we will be hand in hand with you, and we'd like to thank you for tuning in to the update tonight to report all your news and politics.
Tune in next week for more updates from the local level to the nationwide level.
From the update, I'm Johnny Ballman.
And I'm Jordan Tovar. Have a wonderful night.